Well, the Chinese Communist Party and its quite regressive current government have outdone themselves today. Mark this day down as the day in which the Chinese regime disgraced itself in front of the world. Yes, China is under enormous pressure from the world to explain how this pandemic originated on its soil. And it's ramped up its punishment of Australia because we suggested that there should be an inquiry. Oh dear. But no nation with a scintilla of morality or diplomacy does what China did today. From an official social media account on Twitter, the Chinese Foreign Ministry published a doctored image of an Australian digger slitting the throat of an Afghan child with its head wrapped in the Afghan flag. "Don't be afraid, we are coming to bring you peace," the image states. Now, I was in the process of jotting down a few remarks on that tweet this afternoon with the intention, of course, of condemning China, but the Prime Minister beat us all to it. I cannot remember an Australian Prime Minister appearing so angry and delivering such a scathing assessment of any nation outside of wartime.
The repugnant post made today of an image, a falsified image, of an Australian soldier threatening a young child with a knife, a post made on an official Chinese government Twitter account, posted by the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Lijian Zhao, is truly repugnant. It is deeply offensive to every Australian who has served in that uniform, every Australian who serves in that uniform today, every one who has pulled on a uniform and served with Australians overseas from whatever nation, that they have done that. It is utterly outrageous and it cannot be justified on any basis whatsoever.
Now, the Prime Minister there was clearly seething. And of course, this is off the back of copping 5 months of vitriol from the Chinese. But each time another export sector was banned or had tariffs placed on it, after each nasty statement delivered by the government-run press, don't forget we were the chewy under their shoe, Scott Morrison was always controlled. He's been consistently diplomatic, consistently offering an olive branch to that regime. But today, he wasn't holding back.
The Chinese government should be totally ashamed of this post. It diminishes them in the world's eyes. I want to make a couple of points about this. Australia is seeking an apology from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from the Chinese government for this outrageous post. We are also seeking its removal immediately and have also contacted Twitter to take it down immediately. It is a false image and a terrible slur on our great defence forces and the men and women who've served in that uniform for over 100 years.
There was more, and he didn't miss on those occasions either. Now, the Foreign Ministry in China has, within the last hour, responded to what Scott Morrison had to say. I'll get to that in just a second. But the Chinese government deserved every bit of that delivery. Now, the cynic might say, well, surely if the Brereton report is right, China has every right to highlight the evidence and pillory Australia's weakness on human rights. Well, that's garbage. It is garbage because this is a report formulated on an investigation supported by private statements which have not been put under the scrutiny or the rigour of a public judicial test. And even if partly true, it is a very small number of incidents involving a tiny percentage of soldiers in a brutal entire decade of fighting in the harsh battles of war in Afghanistan. And more than that, no nation, no army, no government can claim to be clean skins from their own history of war. The Chinese in particular have nothing to be proud of from a long list of outrageous incidents on their own people, let alone innocent foreigners. Now, if you want to take more modern times, forget about what happened 400 years ago. You go back less than 100 years to 1927, the massacre of communists in Shanghai has never been forgotten by Shanghainese. Or in the 30s, when the government burnt down the city of Changsha, killing its entire population for the sake of depriving the Japanese of wealth. And in World War II, take your pick. The Chinese were appalling in following any kind of rule of engagement. And Tiananmen Square was unforgivable. I was in Beijing reporting on what occurred. The Prime Minister is dead right to highlight this disgraceful fake image today. And the Chinese have hit a new low in their relationship, not just with Australia, but the world. But at the same time, our government and our military should hold its fire as well in persecuting our own SAS unit before the courts deal with these allegations. And that includes holding fire on stripping 3,000 soldiers of their citations, for goodness sake. It is inconceivable that in order to clean up the army, the top brass would not wait for common criminal law to be applied in these cases. Do they think that their form of justice is the only significant process that matters? If we are prepared to tear into the Chinese government over an horrendous image in an attack on our military, we had better stand by our men and women until the proper processes have been exhausted. That should mean that the idea of stripping away citations should be shelved for at least 2 years. Because at times like these, it can be a bit difficult to tell who the enemy really is.